Hi Far West, Shabbat Shalom. This week in Taste of Torah we have Parshat Vayetze, which was actually my bat mitzvah parsha, which is pretty cool. So let's dive in. So, when we last left Yaakov, he had just tricked his brother Esav, and his mother Rivka was like, yo, you have to run as far away from Esav as you can, because he's going to kill you. Run to my brother Lavan, who lives in Haran. So Yaakov's on his journey. On his journey, he stops to rest for one night, and he has a dream about angels climbing up and down a ladder. You've probably seen artwork based on it, maybe. Anyway, he keeps traveling, and then he gets to a spot where he thinks Lavan lives around there. He sees a group of shepherds standing around a well, and the well has this huge boulder on top of it, presumably to keep debris from falling in, and the shepherds are standing around waiting for other shepherds to come, because you need like 15 guys to roll, or girls, to roll the stone off the well. So Yaakov says, hey, do you know Lavan? And they're like, yeah, actually, here comes his daughter Rachel right now. And then we have an interesting sequence of events, so pay attention to the order here. So as soon as Yaakov sees Rachel, he's overcome with some emotion, and he lifts the stone off the well all by himself and pushes it off. A job which would take 15 people, he does by himself, which is pretty crazy. Then, in order, he kisses Rachel, he cries, and then he tells her who he is, and it's not till later that the text says that he loves her. So Rachel is kissed by a crying guy, and she has no clue who this guy is, just a random man. And then later, the text explains, oh yeah, Yaakov loves her. So we'll go back to that in a minute, but just remember that. So by the way, Rachel is Yafat Ta'ar Vifat Mar'eh. She is beautiful, and she has an older sister, Leah. And the text describes Leah as a Nei Leah Arakot. The eyes of Leah were weak. She wasn't very pretty. So remember how Yaakov was very tricky, and how his mother Rivka is very tricky? Well, it must run in the family, because Rivka's brother Lavan is also very tricky. So Yaakov makes a deal with Lavan. Basically, if Yaakov works 7 years for Lavan, at the end of it, he'll get to marry Rachel. Great! So 7 years are up. It's time for the wedding. They get married with a veil, and the morning after the wedding, Yaakov wakes up and realizes that he's actually married Leah, and that she was disguised as Rachel. He's so angry, he goes to Lavan, he's like, excuse me, you tricked me. And Lavan says, well, no, actually we have a custom in our land that the older daughter has to marry first. And then he basically tricks Yaakov into agreeing to working another 7 years before he gets to marry Rachel. So that happens. So the two sisters married to Yaakov. Leah is having a lot of kids. Rachel is barren. So Rachel gives Yaakov her maid, Bilhah, as a wife. Bilhah has kids. Then Leah is like, I'm not going to be outdone. She gives Yaakov her maid, Zilpah, to have kids. So they're all having kids. And then eventually, finally, Rachel has a kid. She has Yosef, which we'll definitely talk about later. Once Rachel has a kid, Rachel, whatever, and Yaakov decides it's time to go home. He and Lavan argue over whose sheep are whose. Lavan tries to cheat him, so Yaakov tricks him, and then they leave. Wow, crazy long parsha. But let's talk more about that strange sequence of events. It goes the kiss and then the love, not the love and then the kiss, which is strange because normally emotions inspire actions. Why do I hug my brother? Because I love my brother. In Disney movies, why do the prince and the princess kiss? Because they fell in love at first sight. But not so here. The kiss happens before the love. So what's going on? So let's bring in another quick idea, which don't worry, we'll get to it. So the text says, when he's working for Rachel, V'avod Yaakov b'Rachel 7 shanim, v'hiyu be'einav kiyamim achadim ba'ahavato ota. And Yaakov worked 7 years for Rachel. And in his eyes, it seemed like only a few days because he loved her so much. So why did it seem like only a few days? Like, shouldn't the years have stretched out into eternity because Yaakov couldn't bear to wait to marry Rachel? So there's a 16th century commentator named Rabbi Moshe ben Chaim, also known as the Alshich, and he says that while Yaakov was doing the work, it was difficult. Not because he loved her and couldn't wait to be with her, but because he was doing the hard work of learning to love. But he kept building his relationship with her, and once his feelings for her reached the point that you could call them love, he forgot all about the labor-intensive work he had done, and the 7 years only felt like a few days. So according to this reading, we can read that early kiss not as an expression of love, but an act done on the way to feeling love. So the Alshich appears to believe that Yaakov didn't love Rachel for the whole 7 years he was working for her hand, but somehow during the time period he grew to love her. So he's saying that Yaakov didn't love Rachel yet at the moment that he kissed her, which we already kind of guessed. So the kiss came before the love. The action came before and perhaps inspired the emotion. So that's a very interesting reading. It can be applicable in a lot of ways. I like looking at it and applying it to my relationship with God and with Jewish practice. It took me wrapping tefillin every day for a month, 2 months before I found any sort of connection to it. But eventually, the daily repetitive act of wrapping tefillin is what grew my connection to it. So it wasn't that I wrapped tefillin because I felt inspired and wanted to. I wrapped tefillin, and out of that wrapping came the action. It can happen with not just Jewy things also. When I was in middle school, we had to run a mile once a month, and I hated running. But eventually, out of that running, I became to love running, and now I'm a runner. So again, it wasn't that I ran because I loved to run. I ran, and out of the action of running came my love to run. The action came before and inspired the emotion. So I just think it's a beautiful way of looking through life. This is my last time talking to you guys through Taste of Torah, so I hope you've enjoyed. Next week we have the first ever US Wire Taste of Torah with the amazing Max Ginsburg and Parshat Vayishlach, so stay tuned. Shabbat Shalom.